Welcome back to BaldHeaded Metal, guys. My name is Joseph. Today I want to do something special and do a full album reaction to Hypocrisy's new album, Worship, starting with the first song, Worship. I will be skipping My Chemical Whore and Children of the Grey because I've already done reactions to those songs and music videos. So I'll only listen to songs that I haven't heard yet so I can give you an honest first-time reaction. Afterwards, I'll do kind of a small review for the album myself, what I thought of it, what I liked, what I didn't like. So I think it's just time for me to jump into a full Hypocrisy album. Granted, I'm not jumping into their classics or some of the ones they're known for more. I don't know what to expect, how good this particular album is, and you know, it's still so early that it came out only on Friday. So I think it'll be a nice point to jump in and get an impression of this band. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. And if you are new to this channel, just be prepared. I voice my opinions 100%, so be ready if there's any criticisms. I'm usually respectful when I voice those. I'm never just like flat out shitting on a band or anything like that. But so far what I've heard from Hypocrisy, I was on board. I enjoyed the sound. Let's get right into it, see what we got. But I did forget to mention, this is a pretty dope cover, which I think a lot of metal album covers nowadays are not as cool as they were like in the 90s. So this is pretty dope, classic 90s era, and that classic sci-fi feel to the cover, which is really cool. What I did mention so far to those who are new to this channel is out of the songs I've reacted to from Hypocrisy, I said I like them incorporating this melodic sound, which you guys told me is not always been the case, as they've been at the forefront of death metal back from 1991, and I believe they're from Sweden. And Peter Tagerton, I think is his full name. He was one of the pioneers of like this particular sound and the producer in the genre, so he's been a big influential guy. But I like right away in Chemical Whore, I loved this kind of mid-tempo, more melodic sound to death metal. I've always enjoyed it more for the most part. You know, I just right before this, I read a small Wikipedia about Peter, and he talked about this album. It's like, look, we're not trying to reinvent the formula. I just want to give you a classic Hypocrisy that's just going to be a right punch in the face. And right off the bat, just a minute and 30 seconds into it, you can feel this just unrelenting force coming at you, which is a good thing. I think from veteran bands, we don't necessarily look at them to reinvent the genre. We look for more of what we like in the best possible way, which I've gotten with Exodus, and hopefully you guys have gotten it with this album. But now it's my time to check it out.
Goes with the rain, the sense of purpose defeat.
Yeah, so far no complaints. So far just kind of old school great death. So like especially you can hear the Swedish death metals, like Swedish death metal. And this is kind of a, I would say, the more harsher sound. And it looks like he purposely didn't want to overproduce the sound to still have that rawness to it. Because when you take, I feel, certain sounds and you put too much, like they overproduce it and try to make it sound absolutely perfect and there's no mistakes, it tends to sound very mechanical. But when you leave some of that, just like the oomph in it, it gives it more impact, and especially extreme music like this, at least in my opinion. Yeah, that switch was just beautiful, just nice and brutal. I love, so far this song, I'm loving it. And probably the most out of the three that I've heard. I think Chemical Horror has a nice catchy riff to it, but this is like what death metal should be. Fucking dope. See, for me, I don't get it. Why don't they put songs like this as singles? I mean, at least I understand maybe that the concept or the thinking behind it is, let's put a song that's easy on the ears, that's catchy, that's possibly going to capture the widest net in the album. Maybe, you know, the studio is the one who picks these singles. But from a death metal fan's perspective, I think Chemical Horror is a great song. Just like I thought Prescribing Horror in the Exodus is a great song, but they're not the showcase song. This is a showcase song. This is like, whoa, okay, Hypocrisy's back, full force, full vengeance, full throttle. That's what I want to hear. But I'm also getting these other songs. That's kind of the way I would approach it, where I thought the two songs they showed were good, but they were softer. And this is heavy. And if you're listening to death metal, you're already into extreme music. So I don't know what the decision was behind it and who really chooses it. I've always had this kind of issue with the singles people pick for their albums, because most of the time I feel like they don't match. It's like it's not the perfect example in my opinion.
The bang light up the sky, you understand forevermore. Cold to the other side, no turning back. You pay your dues, pay it till your blood. Come to feel, come to heal, come to say goodbye, come to be with your life. Watching the guns of the masses, wings for the stars and the earth. Watching the guns of the classes, the soul within us all. Watching the guns of the masses, wings for the stars and the earth.
I actually also like what he's doing with the voice, the screeching kind of high pitch one, and the more standard death metal growl that he does, which in Chemical Horror he does yet another thing with his voice. I'm really starting to appreciate him. I starting to appreciate what he's done with the sound of this band, and understanding now the influence he had on so many different bands. Respect right away goes to him, right off the top. Yeah, dope song, great beginner, nice and brutal. let's kick the album into high gear. Now let's move on to our next song. Now traditionally the second song would have been Chemical Whore, and I think it's a nice break. It goes from a really heavy song into this kind of a slower mid-tempo song. So it's a nice balance to show you, hey, we got different styles going on in this album. I think it's a smart decision right off the bat. Then we got the song Greedy Bastards, which is a interesting name. I wish I had lyrics because, you know, it's obviously very difficult to understand what he is singing about. But typically, anybody who's been on this channel, I dive into music first. For me, lyrics, as deep as they can be, they come to me much, much later. I first have to be into the music, into the vocals, open performance, and everything like that before I dive deep into lyrics. Mainly because it could be for me, it's like an overload of information, try to take everything in at once. So I focus on elements, and the deeper I get into a band, the more I discover. Anywho, let's see what we got with Greedy Bastards.
What you wanna get? Why don't you steal like the government? Raise tickets with a pocket full of gold. Hustling is stealing, they don't give a shit about us. But for me, I'll make you.
Yeah, it's a classic sound. The thing about it is a perfect example of there is enough complexity in the songwriting. There is enough catchiness, actually. There's some nice catchy riffs in there. It stays raw, it stays brutal. It doesn't try to. There's certain new bands, when you listen to them, they try. It sounds like they're trying a little bit too hard. I've had this feeling when I've recorded a reaction, which you guys will see a little bit later on, for Rivers of Nil, which I liked the song. I thought it was a good song, but there's this element of just, to me personally, felt like it's just trying just a little hard. And coming from innovators of the genre, they're not trying hard. It's who they are, and it's how they play. At least that's the way it appears to me every time I listen to these kinds of old school veterans that sticked around for such a long time, which is now, what, 30 years? They've been around for 30 years. Yeah, I like both of these songs so far, both of the singles that I've heard. Both of these are really nice representations of just good old school death metal. And we don't get a lot of really old school sound anymore, I think, because some of the ones that have released albums like Unleashed, I didn't like the album personally. I didn't even review it. If you see at the channel, I didn't even review it because I'm like, I don't want to shit on the band, just, you know, reviewing something that I'm not gonna, really not like. And I just moved on to something else and kind of did other things. Not because I don't think you should release reviews with bad reviews about an album. I didn't even want to waste my time recording the video. That's how bad it was. Perhaps I should have done it. Anywho, let's keep going with this one. Let's see what we got here. You know what this cover also reminds me of? It just hit me. This is from my old school fans out there. You will know this. Agent Steel. Agent Steel was a band, a thrash metal band from the 80s, late 80s, if I remember it correctly. Order of the Illuminati. I'm trying to remember that blue album, Omega Conspiracy. Great thrash record, which they actually recently came back with No Gods Before Us, I think was the new album, which I couldn't get into just yet, but I do recommend their older albums from Agent Steel. It's some just nice old school thrash metal, which Nick Menza actually from Megadeth used to play in.
Clouds, manipulated pleasure, and empty your bank account. Where's your Texas and lock us down? Look the bodies who will kill our hopes. Get the mind so it cannot cope. Be the drivers to insanity, and leave us as the evil enemy.
Yeah, I'm getting a glimpse of this album. They're intertwining this kind of alien thematic through the cover, through the songs, but they're also incorporating it almost like an analogy for certain things that are happening now with things like Chemical Whore, and what I'm guessing is probably talking about corporations. At least that's what it sounds like. Maybe I'm wrong here.
Almost a clock with lies controls us till the end of time.
Wow, that was some more? No, it's just gonna fade out. It has to, yeah. It just fades out into the end. I'm really digging in the 4 songs that I've heard from this album. Is this mixture of really melodic leads with really heavy kind of sound that it has. And just intertwining it together, this perfect blend, almost like Amon Amarth, I think did it really well, and it just sounds good. And it has this kind of, with its solos and with its leads, it has this kind of otherworldly feel, at least to me. So far, with the 4 songs that I've heard, very strong record. Very strong record. If it keeps up this momentum, it's definitely going to be like a top tier album to recommend to anybody in 2021. Anywho, let's move on actually to the next song. Now with this song, we got The Dead World. Let's just get into it right away without any further ado. I don't want to waste time. See what we got with this particular song and in which way it's going to change up the album so far. Well, that surprised me. I expected something else. I expect them to kick it into high gear again, and it's a nice switch up, a nice kind of like a eerie riff going on here. Strong beginning. So far, liking it. Let's get into it. Let's see what else we got.
I'll see the world dead with their evil minds and evil plans. I'll see the world dead with bleeding fists and triggered veins, the slaughter of the damned.
Yeah, the songwriting is off the charts. Really enjoying it. Like I said, it's just it has this feeling. It's very well thought out. Every song is different. It has interesting riffage. It has interesting leads. It takes the songs into different places. They feel like compositions. They don't just feel like cool riffs to plug in here and there. It feels like a composition from the beginning to the end. And I think this is where experience comes into play, because there's some bands that even I like that are newer death metal bands. They just don't have these kinds of songwriting skills yet. They need a couple more albums under their belt. There's very few bands within a couple of albums who are able to produce like Peace Sells But Who's Buying or Rust in Peace and Master of Puppets. There's very few bands that were able to make those kind of high level albums. From this, I would be very surprised to hear from you guys is just if they're like, I know there's probably older albums that you guys find to be more better than this one, but you also can't probably deny, I'm gonna assume here, can't deny that there's a certain level of intricacy that he brings to the albums now, because this is high quality. I don't think this is a half-assed effort from a band that's late into their career just to release an album. It feels like an inspired effort. Just like for me, Exodus was this year as well. It felt inspired. They had something to say, something to play, something to show, and they still have that fire in their pants, you know, keeping them going. Overkill is another band like that for me as well. And then there's other bands like Slayer and Megadeth and Metallica now. They are just withered away to their former, like, shell of their former selves, especially before Slayer retired. I thought that past couple albums were kind of bad. Repentless is the only one I could mildly listen to. Like, everything else was like just really bad. Anywho, let's get into it. Yeah, back to that eerie riff. I really like that.
What they're saying and what they will do. With aluminum in our veins, we will drop that sun. Governments around the world, it's hypocrisy with their evil plan, exterminating humans. See how we run, see how we suffer.
Yeah, I've noticed, I wanted to say a comment kind of about these veteran bands. I noticed a trend personally. There's bands that were popular in the 80s and 90s, and they've just become outdated now, which is why they don't sound as good. For me, was the example of Unleashed. They had a unique sound for when they first started that nobody kind of had, and or at the very least they were doing it very well if it was a, you know, a popular sound. But as the time went on and newer bands progressed the sound, made it better, made it more technical, they've just become outdated and weren't able to keep up with the times. Then there's bands, like I said, who lost the fire. They have too much money in their pockets now that their pockets are all stuffed, and they just don't have that same fire anymore. You can't blame them. It happens to most people. We just get to a certain point, we get comfortable and complacent. And then there's people who I think it's their calling to be musicians. And they just keep producing. Like, there's bands who come out in the late stages of their career and produce some of the best work they ever had because they still have the fire, and perhaps because they're still hungry in comparison to their peers who really made it on this big stage. At least that's what the impression I've always gotten, and the way I've felt about certain bands. For example, when Andrew McKay Smith and I talked on our podcast about our big four, what we would put in there, and how we mentioned Overkill and Exodus, Testament, and all these bands who are producing better albums than Metallica and Megadeth, and I would say than Anthrax as well. It's like we need to include these other bands. Slayer, don't even get me started with Slayer. Slayer is one of my favorite thrash metal bands of all time. It's in my top 10 bands of all time. But after Diablos and Musica, which to me is still tolerable, God Hates Us All was kind of fun, and Repentless was kind of fun. After that, it was just like, basically you can throw out that catalog and never mention it again. But what they've done with the early part of the career is the reason I kept them on top as one of my main favorite thrash metal bands. But anyway, that's my opinion. I would like to hear from you guys. Maybe you agree with me, disagree with me, to see your point of view.
Turning us against each other. Oh, see the world dead. When their evil minds burn evil cleanse. Oh, see the world dead. With bleeding fists and triggered hate. The slaughter of the is cracking into pieces. We are the global experiment. Hate is driving us mad. Waste the slaughter of the
dead. Yeah, guys, I wish I heard songs like this. Not that I didn't like the songs you guys showed me so far, but this is like, I'm really enjoying this. I'm as soon as I get finished doing this reaction, the first thing I'm doing is sending this direct link to my brother because I think he needs to check this out. Great song. I mean, it's another fade out, so that's why I'm stopping here. Great song. The next song we got here is We're the Walking Dead. Again, nice analogy. Because I made an assumption about Chemical Whore being somehow perhaps maybe linked with COVID. But it looks like he wrote the song more about the pharmaceutical companies, which, again, still very relatable. He's not afraid to talk about uncomfortable topics, which I think is important. Even if I'm not deeply diving into lyrics right now in each of these songs, you can tell just based on the songs that I did listen to the lyrics to, and plus kind of the names. In general, metal has been known not to be afraid to step in. That's one thing I've always found silly, not silly, but a little off-putting about power metal. I like power metal, and I like fantasy, and I like all that kind of stuff. I do. I really enjoy it. But there's nothing like a good song about something. Sepultura was so good with their lyrics. Short, concise, and to the point. And it looks like kind of in the same vein with Hypocrisy as well. Anywho, let's get into it. It'll be interesting how they switch it up here too. I'm always looking how the songs shape and change. Yeah, nice kind of epic beginning, still keeping with the theme of this kind of omnipotence and something alien kind of. It has this sound throughout each song, I think, for the exception, I think, of Chemical Horror. He has this kind of otherworldly sound, which I think is really, really cool. I'm really enjoying his vocals on this one too. That deep, deep growl that he's kind of getting into a little bit more guttural. I like it. It just sounds dark. It's a perfect example of a song that I remember when I was younger, I thought heavy just meant faster and louder. And that's not true. As you get older, you understand it's the mood that it creates. One of the heaviest songs, 213 from Slayer, it's one of the heaviest songs I've ever heard, because it just is so creepy. It gives you like goosebumps when you hear what the song is about and how dark it is. I remember had Marduk had a similar song. It was very slow. It just sounds like pure evil, which absolutely made me giddy as a kid. Sorry, I remember the song. It was Marduk, Bleached Bones. Check it out. It's a black metal band, but that song is slow and it's just absolutely creepy.
Chemicals dispensed through your flesh. We're floating in chaos. Take your time, 'cause we all will fly. We're the walking dead. We're living the dream in paradise. We're the
To me, it almost seems like, I don't know why I keep going back to it, but to me, it seems like Chemical Horror is a studio song. Again, not a bad song. It's not a bad song, but just in comparison, how good these songs are, I feel like Chemical Horror is going to be probably, and Children of the Grey is probably going to be my least favorites on this album. At least that's the way it looks, because every single song is just better than the other, and it's kind of keeps topping it. For me personally, I do like this slow tempo kind of the song, just like it with Chemical Horror, but it just has more complexity to it. Yeah.
radiation, just another part of your life. Take your time and look around. It's coming for you. We're the walking dead. We're living the dream in paradise. We're the walking dead.
I wonder if this song is going to switch up in some shape or form, because it's a pretty, it's on the longer side so far, and it's been keeping with this kind of a slower tempo. I'm sure it's going to have kind of a solo progression into something different. It almost like begs for it, because you've just gotten enough of this riff that you've enjoyed, and I feel like it's going to switch somewhere else.
Programmed to obey, programmed to die.
I'm surprised it didn't switch anywhere. It kind of stayed. Yeah, it didn't really switch. It kind of looks like it's going to stay on the same path, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but okay. Like I've become a little bit wishy-washy about this particular song. Not a bad song, not the greatest on this album. It's a nice filler song. Yeah, and again, it's going to fade out. He's really liking the fading out on each of the songs. Yeah, this song wasn't bad, wasn't great. It was cool, kind of, because it had an interesting hook to it. I just felt like it needed something more, at least to change up just a little bit. Because if we look at something like prescribing horror from Exodus's new album, it's also a simple song. It stays relatively the same, but there's a little bit more of a change up there, especially with the solo. Whereas there's no solo here really, it's just a couple of leads. And I don't know, I felt like it lacked something. Anywho, let's move on to the next song, see what we got here. Next song we got here is going to be Brotherhood of the Serpent. So let's see what. I feel like this is going to be a faster song because we got a couple of songs, especially the last one, where The Walking Dead was a little bit slower, Dead World is a little bit faster. I feel like they're going to come back, especially with a shorter length. It's going to come back to a faster, kind of more hard-hitting song. Yeah, there's a conscious effort on his part to make every single song sound different. That's what I do have to give him. There's some bands that I like where you can almost mistake one song for another. You cannot mistake one song for another here. They all sound super different.
You are the slave that feeds me, feeds on your misery. No commentation or evil deeds. You're the one who needs it, the taste of royalty. Patience, we're on our way. We'll make you beg. Nothing's for free, we'll keep you to the end. In the hands of the evil madman. If only taking its toll. In the hands of the evil sadness. It's dropping like a bomb, falling down, down, down. Decrease the population, that's the mass.
Yeah, this song I like. Again, so far I like the first couple of songs in the beginning a little bit more. But I'm really enjoying the particular sound. And something I've mentioned already a couple of times is the old school sound. I typically like the old school sound very much, especially when it's done with new production. That's one of the coolest things kind of to hear, because I've mentioned on the podcast that for example, I don't like Judas Priest's old albums, not because the songs are bad, but because the production for me is not. I've heard a lot of these songs first live, and how good they sound heavy live. And when you hear them on the album, because of production limitations, it just doesn't sound the same to me. And I know it's a travesty to say, because those classic songs, British Steel and Ram It Down and all these kinds of albums. But that was just kind of my opinion of it.
Some blood, it's just 2 million people, it's just within time. Rise to the evil system, rise, we control your fear. To the corrupted media, we leave you hate and scarred. No commentation, our evil deeds. You're the one who needs it, the taste of royalty. Instance, criminal knowledge. We make you beg. Parents, nothing's for free. We'll keep you till the end. Because of the evil madman. And finally taking its toll. In the ranks of the evil surplus.
Yeah, there's interesting songwriting, but initially what I'm feeling here is that the steam starts to go down from the album, because it just started fast and heavy and so much creativity, and now it's just winding down a little bit. And maybe it's just these couple of songs and it kind of picks back up or switches up or whatever it may be. But that's just, it's my initial thought as I'm hearing it now. I really like that fast drumming with the melody. Again, just sounds like very ominous, and that's a very, very nice switch up for the song. Let's see how it kind of keeps going. Yeah, I'll make a comparison. What I mean by it's definitely winding down a little bit. One of the greatest albums in death metal, from in my opinion, and I'm going to use this specific album for a reason. It is Bolt Thrower, the Royal. It's their last album that they released. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. It was the last album they released before they disbanded. And the thing about Bolt Thrower is they have very samey sounding songs. They do. But the riffs are just so catchy. And they have these moments in each song that literally get shivers running down my spine. Anti-tank armor, and some of the other songs. Cannon Fodder. They have this feeling that makes me want to automatically listen to the song over as soon as it's done. Here, there's a certain level of exhaustion already actually kicking in for me, because the songs have interesting riffs. They have interesting atmosphere. They have all the elements, but they stay too long on one element without ever going anywhere. and the riffs are not that catchy from the beginning, in my opinion. That makes it all a little bit wind down quicker than I think it should, because the album is also not a super long album either. And maybe it's just a preference thing. Maybe it's simply this the guys out there who absolutely love this and they think it's the perfect kind of way and they don't like Bolt Thrower or something like that. I don't know. It's just the riffs in here, they need more. And the first couple songs, they had so much more going on, in my opinion. So far, it doesn't. I'm not saying that this is a bad album. It went from a great album to like a solid death metal album as of now. And let's see, maybe it's going to sway me in a maybe slightly different direction as the album progresses. Children of a Grey, we've done. We're going to move on to Another Day. This is what I'm talking about. That's what I want to hear. Let's go. They put it in the system to drag you down, to make you feel like you constantly drown. Another day, another nightmare, another triumph for the race. Another day, another torture, another glorious day in the takes. Unicomplete thoughts, untimely soul. Those ones who worth, and that's how it fucking goes. You can't find all you want, but they don't give a shit. When you make too much noise, they'll make you disappear. Another day, another nightmare. Yeah, here I just don't like the chorus. Again, guys who are new to this channel, I am quite a picky person when it comes to metal, and it's not because I have some bougie taste or something like that, but it's more of a, I don't know, it's like after you listen to 25 years of heavy metal, when people tell me they discover some new band and they're like, I've never heard anything like this, I don't get that very often. I get bands, I'm like, whoa, this is really good. I remember when I discovered Nile, Those Whom the Gods Detest was the album I really liked, Annihilation of the Wicked. I can't say I haven't heard anything like it, but it was just done on a level way above everybody else, and that's what I enjoyed about it. But to say something, like when you've heard enough of a certain genre in music, it's harder to impress you. It's just a fact. That's how it is. It's like the more people you date, the more jaded you become when it comes to dating somebody new. It's all these kinds of things and elements that come together. But overall, the song so far I'm enjoying. It's just the chorus. I mean, not that I don't like the chorus. I'm like, okay. Another triumph for the race. Another day, another torture. Another glorious day in the takes. Another day, another hell. There's a war for our souls. Another day, another fact. Just do what you've been told. Wait, that's it? They gotta be more. Okay. This song definitely picked up this pace for me like that right away. despite the fact that the chorus might not be 100% to my liking, the overall intensity of the song, the speed, the catchy riff. Here it has a nice catchy riff. Yeah, this I really like. Yeah, I've always felt like if a song is going to repeat a chorus or a bridge that what we've gotten used to, it needs to be really catchy and really good. Or at the very least, you do it one way and you slightly change it the second way. Like you keep repeating the same thing, eventually it starts wearing thin. When you do it with multiple songs, it wears even more thin. And that's what's happening with this particular album for me. It's not that it's bad riffs, because like there's albums I've heard from bands like they didn't know how to write music. It was mediocre. The riffs was okay. Those like elements in there. Here, I think he knows how to he's definitely knows how to write music. He's a legend. He understands what he's doing, but there's also a limitation on spreading your wings, I think, because there's so much. For me, the positives outweigh the negatives, anything that I might complain about or bitch about, because I'm actually, despite my criticisms now, I am quite enjoying this album. But there's this element in there I can't pinpoint that just would have elevated it to absolute greatness, and I don't think it's gonna hit that stride because I'm mostly done with the whole album. With what we got here, yeah, we got 3 more songs. Let's see what's gonna happen. They Will Arrive. Yeah, I love that. Just in that chugging riff right away, the way it switches, he just gets you by the balls right away.
Pyramids, paperclips, why don't you crack the code? You're not ready yet. Agent Sadist, read up to all the clues. It's not so easy without the final ground. The sky is falling down. They will arrive, 'cause we set the plate. They are the gods that made you what you are. Never forget. They will arrive, 'cause among you insects, we've been abused enough. Their breath to collect, restoring a balance, hidden from the truth. Try to protect the royal bloodline.
Yeah, so far this is one of the stronger songs. I wish I had something more insightful to say, because usually when I do these kind of long reactions, I always have thoughts about each song in particular and how it breaks it down, what it does different. And you saw me do that with the first half of the album. And this is just so far just a good song. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer, see what I'm gonna hear before really giving thoughts on this particular song. Because so far, nothing to gripe, nothing to complain about.
You're the coming for hell. Another 10, hidden within diseases, to have the upper hand. The needs of control of the human rats, so they can kill us all.
think the also difference between me and you guys who are fans of Hypocrisy is that you already have an established rapport with this band and a love for it. So there's things you can forgive, some things you've learned to like, some things you'll never like probably about the band, or just the pure excitement of getting a new Hypocrisy album can make you view this product a little bit differently. And then coming in somebody who's absolutely blind, and maybe even blind to the full extent of the importance of this band, I come in with a different point of view. I just want to kind of point that out as I make some of my criticisms. They kind of understand as well where I'm coming from. It's the same if somebody, I've mentioned Ice Earth a lot on this channel, that it's my favorite band of all time, and quite a lot of people actually criticize them. Some of those things I think are justified. Some of those things I know people are saying who've never listened to the band beyond probably a couple of songs. So I know how you feel when I tend to say something that's a little bit hard to hear. I also thought it was pretty cool that he streamed, Hypocrisy streamed the whole album live for people to check it out, and those who really like it can buy it, because I think that shows confidence in your product. It's like, yeah, my fans are going to enjoy it. I think they're going to like it. And I think this album is probably made for fans. Yeah, I really like that lead in the background, along with the double bass drums is kind of going in. I really like that sound. It has a nice melodic sound to it, despite its heaviness. And we fade out. That one we got used to. Let's move on to the next song. It's going to be Bug in the Net. Yeah, so far, I think this is a strong outing for a death metal record. It is not earth-shattering. It is just a fun, good, old-school death metal. And I think it's going to stay that way with these next two songs, unless I am just going to be like, you know, there's like sometimes when you listen to an album, you get a song that you're just absolutely hooked on, and you can't stop listening to it. For me, that typically becomes the bands that I like the most. Not a rule. There's bands where I just like one song and that's it. But I think it's a rule. It's just because you have this automatic connection with it that others might not have, that makes your special thing, or that thing that you really, really enjoy. At least that's how it is for me. With trying to remember with Exodus, it was Prescribing Hard, despite the fact that it's not my favorite song. And there's a couple other ones this year that I listened to albums. With Evil, it was... God, I think it was Hell Unleashed. There was one song there as well. Anywho, let's get into it. Nice kind of, again, eerie beginning. in the mixing, I really enjoy those little things that's been added on to just enhance the song just a little bit more. I think it really does add to the atmosphere of the overall album. You know, there's one thing I've heard from you guys when you talked about this band is kind of the importance of this band, how big this band is, or how good this band is. But it feels like they've always been a little bit more underground than other bands. For example, you know, when you say death metal, yeah, you're gonna hear. I think everybody knows Cannibal Corpse, Death. Everybody knows bands like. I'm trying to think of another really popular death metal band. There's like, you know, there's certain names you're always gonna hear, and others, despite being really good, they have a more of a cult following. And let me know, guys, does Hypocrisy have more of a cult following, or it's really just a humongous band? Like Insomnium is humongous. I know it's melodic death metal, but it's humongous. And then there's other bands that are a little bit more harder to find, a little bit more obscure.
Bouncing back and forth, bottom mile north of Lincoln. I like this as in front of them. Like a bug in the net, they snatch your souls. It's like playing Russian roulette. They put your life on hold. Like a bug in the net, they crush your hopes. It takes a blink of an eye to control your thoughts.
Yeah, with this song so far, I just like the atmosphere. I can't say I like any of the particular riffs. I just kind of grooving with it, but not necessarily hooked. Yeah, I don't particularly like this song, guys. Like I said, I like those mixing little things that they put in there to make it sound very ominous and very spooky, very kind of reminiscent of the cover. But at the same time, it's just like there's not much going on. I don't know. I understand that it's this more of a mid-tempo, like as you guys said, mid-tempo death metal band, but there has to be some kind of a hook. There has to be some kind of a grab. And in some songs, it's really strong. It's really good. In other songs, it's just like, it's okay. I mean, like, I don't think I would listen to this album a second time. Based on what I've heard. Maybe I'll come back to like a Chemical Horror or a couple other songs just because I want to hear a particular riff. But to me, this is above average solid album, not in my style. And I don't think you can call this a masterpiece, personally. Even if I'm not familiar with their discography, just based on this album alone, I wouldn't put it. I don't see anybody putting it in the top 10 list for any of their top albums this year that they've heard, because this have been some killer albums this year. So there's a lot of competition, and I don't think this particularly fits. Yeah, like that whistle, I think that's really cool. The way it's kind of adding to the whole kind of feel of the whole thing. I do think the concept for the artwork is really cool. The idea of that they're praying and worshiping as he's sucking their souls out, and they're taking over everything in sight. I think that's a cool concept. Again, fade out. Last song, Gods of the Underground. Let's just get into it. Oh, I like that riff, the way it just kind of kicks in. It just caught me off guard a little bit. No, I definitely have to come back to this band, to older albums, and some of the albums you guys recommend to me as the best ones, because I'm going to say it now before my review. I don't think this is the best representation of what this band has to offer, and I want to hear the best representation before I make a final judgment call on the band, whether it's for me or not. Yeah, there's some nice leads. I noticed there's not a lot of solos. They don't play a lot of solos in this band, which is kind of surprising. Because even some hardcore death metal bands, there's always solos. It's an interesting choice on their part. I would like to hear from you guys what you thought of this album. What you think I'm wrong? What you think I'm right? Because a conversation is always interesting. And don't take it personal for any Hypocrisy fan that anything I've said here. It's just my personal opinion. You know, like I said, I try to be as respectful as I can. and give my point of view, but sometimes you can still come across harsh. I understand that. Anywho. This song has some nice switch ups, some nice leads, some nice kind of places. It travels into different places and does different things enough where it reminisces of older songs on this album already, or past songs, I should say. And it's definitely one of the better songs on the album.
To keep us lazy and dumb now, and to live blind in the unknown, to create a new race that's born AI and human. They plug us into central computer, turn the wheel rule us now. Raise welcome to the war song. Don't ever let them fool ya. Riding high on their lies. I'll see you on my way to hell. Guns control the underground, controls the surface of the elite. Bloodline, I to correct the bodies, dictate a terror in my greed. Guns control the
Yeah, I think my biggest thing with this album, which I think I'm starting to understand, it's going to be a person by person case here, is that I don't find most of the riffs catchy. I find them interesting, and they're not, in a sense, like they're not boring, but they don't capture my attention. They don't have me by the hook to want to hear more, to be like, whoa, what did I just hear? I've heard this style of death metal many times, and I've heard others do it worse, and some do it better. So that's why I'm kind of in the middle about this album. Yeah, we'll wait until the review until I can give. I don't like giving ratings, but I might give like a sort of a rating so you see where I'm coming from. Is that it? That's it. Now, let's get into a review and see what we got here. What do I think of this album? First of all, a little thing. I am not a fan of Hypocrisy. I've only discovered it through this reaction channel, as you guys recommended me to check out this band out if I like death metal. And I've stayed about the same at this band, where there's some songs I like, there's some songs I don't like. Generally speaking, I think it's a solid album, but it never rises to that occasion where it's a great or a classic album. And I think it's true with Worship 100%. It starts very strong. I thought Worship was a great song. Greedy Bastards, Dead World were all really, really fantastic songs. But I think it very quickly started to lose some steam. And what I mean by that is a lot of the songs stick too long on certain elements without having an interesting riff, a change up in a song, a solo. There's none of those things happening very much. It kind of stays in this mid-tempo area and throughout the album. Now, the thing that's good about this album is that the riffs that are there, they might not be immediately catchy, but they are interesting. Especially with the mixing, the way they create this very eerie, spooky kind of a sound, trying to the omnipotent, almost like alien sound throughout the album, I thought was really cool, especially with a dope cover art for this album. But overall, this album, I think as somebody who's never listened to another full album from Hypocrisy, I have a strong feeling that this is not the best that they have. I feel like they're probably, this was a great effort for fans of the band, from a band that's been around for, you know, over 20 years now. And it's, you still probably go back to older albums which have been recommended to check out, and I will. But this is not exactly like this. So especially this year, there's been a lot of competition with some really good bands releasing albums. Bellacore's album, for example, Coherence, is one to name, which is absolutely fantastic, and the way it progresses and changes up and does all these interesting things. Whereas this one kind of, it becomes too complacent fast with a lot of its songs. Well, you'll have a very interesting setup, very interesting riffs, and interesting sound and production. All those things come together well, but it sticks around for too long on the same parts without switching up. And that's what I kind of got a little bit tired of, because the first couple songs I thought just kicked it into high gear, full force, and they were so good. I enjoyed those songs a lot, but something like, for example, Children of the Grey, Another Day, They Will Arrive, I wasn't bugging the net. I can't say I was really blown away by those songs. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed listening to the album. I would recommend this album, but I wouldn't put it on my top 10 list for the year, for example, just so you can kind of get an understanding. And even if I had to give it some kind of a rating, I probably would give it like a solid B minus, where there's enough interesting elements in there, and it does feel inspired, but at the same time, there is not enough there to really call it this kind of a great album. And B minus, even like C plus, to be honest. Within those two, I'm kind of giving you a very fresh and raw reaction and review for this. And yeah, perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps I don't know enough about Hypocrisy, but as somebody who just sat down and is a fan of metal for now 25 years and sat down to listen to this album from beginning to the end, give the artist the respect from beginning to end, I think it could have been better. I think it lacks certain elements, and I think it is perhaps just what this band is, and maybe it's just not for me, you know. I prefer if a band stays in this kind of more simplistic song structure, and I mean simplistic, I don't mean like it's easy to play, but you know, it's like, okay, we're gonna have an interesting bridge with some kind of a chorus, go back to the bridge and go back and forth between these, and maybe have a small change up. The riffs need to be really catchy. The example I gave was Bolt Thrower. I think Bolt Thrower is a very simplistic band in its riffage, but the riffs are so addictive to play, like to hear and listen to, and they have solos. Some songs even sound the same, but like you listen to Anti-Tank Armor, or it's just an absolutely, for Cannon Fodder, absolutely fantastic songs. And because they just hook you with something, they have this thing that makes you want to nod your head, and I didn't get this effect much from the Hypocrisy album, so I don't think I'll ever be coming back to it, to be honest. That's where I'm coming from. I want to hear from some veterans though of this band, to hear how you've taken in this album. Is it just fantastic for you from beginning to the end? Because I'm sure for a lot of people it probably is. Not for me. For me, it's like I said, solid C plus, B minus kind of an album. I wouldn't call it forgettable, but it doesn't really rise to the occasion to be like, whoa, this is a great album, you must check it out. I don't think it's there. I think there's other albums this year you can check out instead. Hopefully, guys, you enjoyed this review. Even if it's not something you particularly wanted to hear on this channel, I try to be as transparent as possible. I don't like to say things just for it to get more likes, you know? And I also don't want to create controversy and say really negative things to get traffic to this channel. I want to be 100% genuine in how I felt, and then we can have a conversation about it. Perhaps maybe over time, where I display my tastes and things that I like and review more albums, you can have an understanding where I come from with my opinions. And maybe you'll agree with some, maybe you'll disagree with some, and maybe we'll build a relationship based on that. Hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Keep it metal. Take care of yourselves.